Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the DUBCAST with Dubside. I'm Andrew Lazaga.
And I am Dubside, and here we are at, what are we at, episode 23, is this?
Yep, episode 23.
Last week you had, was it 2 weeks, whatever it is, we had George Grunt's interview, right?
Yeah, so you got a chance to listen to it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Good work. Yeah, George has always got plenty to say when you get him talking.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear about him being the first American to participate in the Greenland kayak training camp.
Yeah, he's got quite a history, yeah.
I had heard that a long time ago, and I always imagined, that this Greenland kayaking training camp would be filled with excellent rollers and old seal hunters. But it turns out that actually most of them had never been in a kayak before.
Well, back then, I think they had a couple of the old timers were there. I understand when they first opened the competition in 2000, which is quite after George went, there were still some actual sealskin kayaks, made of sealskin. Yep. But since I started going in 2004, I've never seen an actual sealskin kayak in competition. But there's so much maintenance, so much trouble to maintain that nobody bothers.
I'm sure. I remember seeing a picture of a sealskin kayak that George had taken while he was there. The skin really did look a little translucent, like rawhide.
Yeah.
I didn't realize also how important he was in introducing the practice of wearing dry suits in sea kayaking.
Oh yeah, he's the man on that. Absolutely.
I knew he was a big dealer, but I didn't realize that he really started the practice here.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did forget to ask him about was the story that you mentioned about him paddling among the lava flows.
Oh, that's right.
Hawaii.
Oh, yeah, you didn't ask him that.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, some other time, maybe.
Well, if anybody doesn't remember that was all the way back in episode number 2, talking about paddling on lava flows. Yeah. Dig that up in the archives.
Well, I'm excited to announce that for our next episode after this one, I'll have up my interview that I did with Brian Schultz, which will probably be the longest podcast we ever did.
Okay.
He does have a lot to say.
You could split it up in a part 1 and part 2 if it got too long.
Yeah, I actually might do that. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Because there's a lot to say, just an incredible amount of information on kayak design and on the psychology of training and rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to be missed. And the latest episode of the MASIK is out.
Oh, yeah. So my article is in there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading your article.
Good.
You mentioned this trick of paddling through a hula hoop.
Yes. I've still been meaning to go to the wherever I go to get a hula hoop, but it's hard to bring it back on a bicycle. but I've got to start putting one out in the water here and practicing.
Did you try it at that event?
At the one in Florida, yeah, we did it. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to. It takes some practice to get your timing right, because you need to flip over and spear it through the tip of your kayak, but you go and you've overshot it. You have to anticipate that it's going to. It takes a little bit of work.
Okay, so a hula hoop is
a cool trick.
A hula hoop is floating on the water.
Yeah.
And then you paddle toward it, and then once your bow gets in the middle, you turn over.
You get it so when you tip over, your bow dips into the water in the middle of the hula hoop.
Okay.
And then it'll slide along the kayak. Then when you come up, it's in front of you, and then you stick your paddle in it, and then tuck your head under it and push it behind you, and you keep on paddling, and it'll slide back to the back of the kayak, but it'll be hanging off of the stern. And you do another roll, and then it'll come off the stern.
Oh, that's cool.
But it takes some practice to get that to coordinate it properly so it goes smoothly. But it's a very cool trick.
Yeah, neat trick. I'll have to try that, but I'd have to go out and get a hula hoop for it too.
Yeah.
So how many T-shirts have you collected from all these events that you've gone to?
Oh, I have dozens, probably more than 100. But I give them away here. The ones that aren't black, I get rid of over time. Or I'll take them to different events and put them on auction tables for the ones like 5 or 6 years before that. I have a T-shirt from that.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've managed to clear out. Otherwise, I just have way too many T-shirts to deal with. So I unload them when I can. But sometimes I have really, really cool ones. I'll put them on the auction table and nobody will pay attention to it. So it's kind of disappointing to to see that some of them don't get respected, but there's some of them do have very cool designs on them.
I cherish my old T-shirts from those kayak symposiums, and my partner Katya, who likes to make quilts, took a whole bunch of them and made a quilt out of them.
Oh yeah,
it's a pretty cool way to preserve those old T-shirts when you're not wearing them anymore.
Huh.
Okay, well, without further ado, then I'm going to go ahead and hit play on the next episode.
All right.
Welcome to the DUBCAST with Dubside. This is DUBCAST number 23. In my travels, I have met some very interesting people, and that would include traveling in Greenland. The town of Ilulissat, Greenland, is very popular with tourists, and it also is frequented by climate change researchers measuring the ice. There is also a thriving kayak club in Ilulissat. I'd like to tell you about one person who has been involved in kayaking there for over 15 years. Her name is Karen Marie Jensen. Well, the Greenland Kayak Association, also known as QAJAQ, came together in 1985, and in 1987 they decided to hold the first Greenland National Kayaking Championships, and they settled on a 2-year basis. So the next one was held in 1989, followed by 1991 and 1993, and then in 1994 they decided to go every year. So in 94 they held the competition in Ilulissat, and there was a guy living in Ilulissat named Knud Jensen, and he had some young children, and he participated, and his children wanted to participate. And his daughter, oldest daughter, I think, 4 years old, she did some of the races in the girls 4 to 6 category. And this young girl's name is Karen Marie Jensen. She has a younger sister named Pia Jensen, who got involved a little bit later in the kayaking competition. To give you an idea what it's like in the 4 to 6 year old division, the kayaks are much smaller, specially built skin-off frames to fit kids. The race distances are much shorter, and the harpoon throwing distance is shorter, and I haven't seen any kids that age try rolling, but there are kids that age doing the rope exercises. The kayaks they use in that age group usually have some sort of outrigger system tied onto the back of the kayak, say about a 3-foot piece of wood with little floats on the side, which effectively makes kind of a training wheels for a kayak. Kids at that age don't usually have a real solid idea of how to get the kayak to move forward with a paddle, or if they do, they don't really have the muscles yet developed. But sometimes you'll see in that age division, maybe one of the 6-year-olds has got the makings of a stroke and is way out in front of all his competitors. But all the kids get big cheers anyway. In 1994, Karen Murray happened to be the only girl in the 4 to 6-year-old group. And in older groups, I think you have to have 2 or 3 people to compete, otherwise one person gets all the gold medals. But I think in the kids category, they're trying to encourage them so much. So I imagine she got the little kids gold medal for everything she did that year. Her father continued to bring her to the competitions, and it wasn't until 1997 that she tried Ashnaya Katarnok, the Greenland rope exercises. Well, for reference, MASIK started the same year Karen Marie did in 1994, although MASIK was 12 years old and she was only 4 years old. And it took Karen Marie a while to build up her skills and start to distinguish herself on the ropes. In the year 2000, she had 12 points. 2001, she had 16 points. And during this time, MASIK was setting records with scores of over 400 points. In 2002, Karen Marie started to come into her own on the ropes, and her score jumped up to 149, and that got her a gold medal. For the next 10 years, she got a gold medal every time on the ropes, becoming the highest scoring woman, always getting over 100. For several years, she got over 200. Her personal best was 282 points, which any guy would be proud to get a score that high. Now, by that point, I certainly noticed that she was the top woman on the ropes, but I didn't interact directly with her because I didn't see that she could speak English. So it's always awkward, you don't share a common language, so you can't really hang with somebody or say anything to them. I did notice, however, that she had never competed in the rolling event, and I thought that was kind of unfortunate because somebody who does ropes very well generally can do rolling very well if they just work at it. Having the kind of body that's flexible and limber and has that positional awareness, it would translate to rolling quite effectively. That 2009 competition was held in Ilulissat, Karen Marie's hometown. And after the competition, as the other teams were getting ready to leave, I discovered that Karen Marie does speak a little bit of English. And having seen me come to the event for so many years, I didn't need an introduction. But we got to talking, so I asked her if she needed help learning how to roll. As I recall, this was on the dock where the ferry leaves, where all the other teams are going, and the event sort of comes to an end. But I offered to, meet with her the next day at the kayak club, and we could see if we could work on some rolling. And she thought that was a good idea, so we made plans the next day to meet at the club. So I went back to where I was staying, rather excited, and also feeling a little awkward in that, I, a foreigner, was going to be in Greenland teaching a Greenlander how to roll a kayak, which is rather ironic. You think they would be teaching me something. But the Greenlanders being resourceful people, if there's an opportunity there, here's a guy who knows something about rolling, and here's somebody who needs to roll. So yeah, we'll put those two together and make it work. I've described in the past some of the different ways the Greenlanders teach rolling, but I have my own style, and that involves standing next to the person in the water. Well, this is Ilulissat, and the water is ice cold, and so to prepare for this teaching, I got my dry suit, and I got my fleece and some other layers. I had 2 or 3 layers of fleece under the dry suit to be as warm as possible because I was going to be standing in ice water. I think I had some nice thick neoprene gloves too, or maybe there were mittens. So I got to the club at the appointed time. I forget, it was 10 o'clock or something like that. And there was nobody there at the club. Well, this is almost typical Greenland. Maybe this isn't going to happen. Maybe it was just a thought at the time and she got busy with something else and it's just not going to turn out. But maybe 15, 20 minutes later, she showed up. I keep forgetting that the punctuality that I seem to have been born with was out of place in Greenland. Well, she had her street clothes on, and I forget. I think the club might have had some old raggedy wetsuit in her size or something like that. But to increase our time on the water, I got one of the other Americans there had a dry suit that would fit, or we could get it to fit Karen Marie. So we put some more insulation on her and put her in a dry suit, all bundled up. And then on top of that, we put a neoprene tuilik. I think I had some mittens for her as well. So we had everything covered but the face, going for every advantage we could take as far as clothing. So I got her into the kayak and waded out into the water. It was a sunny day, and that backdrop of beautiful icebergs across the horizon in Ilulissat is there for us to see. And one of the first things I typically do when I get somebody in a kayak on the water to learn how to roll is have them lay all the way back as far as they can, just to see how comfortable they are in that particular kayak. I said, Karen, I want you to lean back till your head is on the back deck. And she wouldn't. She says, no, I'm scared. Well, that was certainly a first. Never had anybody refuse to lean back in their kayak before. But understand, this is Greenland, and the kayak is very small, very narrow, just like the Kayak Song says, "A miki susia, a ami susia." Very narrow, very small kayak, and that water is very cold, very intimidating. Switching gears, I tried to address the mental angle. So I said, Karen, the water is your friend. In my old water is your friend idea, I knew the Greenlandic word for friend, kamalat. So I said, see, this water is kamalat. And she wasn't buying it. She goes, no, it's not. Well, I got her relaxed enough to lean all the way back. And then I started working on a balance brace where you just float in the water out to the side of the kayak. And since that didn't involve getting one's face wet, she could handle that, and she's flexible enough, so she had no problem at all doing that. And it was a good confidence builder. She discovered she could lean out to the side instead of falling in completely and just float in the water, laying on her back with a paddle outstretched in one hand, a balance brace, nalasanok. Then it took some time and a lot of encouragement to get her to turn sideways to get her cheek just on the edge of the water, and then a little bit further to get her cheek actually wet, which was a big, big step. And then to get her nose into the water. And she was getting there. She was getting a little more comfortable and calm. And then I had her actually dipping all the way down underwater and coming back up and stretching out with an arm out, holding the paddle. And she was pretty much doing a 180 version of a roll. And then I said, now we have to, I need you to do this going over on the other side so we come all the way around 360 degrees. And she was apprehensive about trying that, but I encouraged her. And within just a few tries, she was doing it all by herself. And I had to convince her that you did that all by yourself, which is a big, huge point in somebody learning how to roll. Once she had that much confidence, it wasn't too much trouble to work that from the butterfly roll to a standard roll. And I think she did the shotgun roll as well. And she was doing side sculling, these all competition maneuvers. So I had her points added up. I think she was up to 10 points. She was very happy about that. And I was very proud of her, but I also had to acknowledge that my toes and my legs were turning into icicles because that water is cold, and she was getting pretty chilly by then. That might have been about half an hour we spent, so we decided to call it a day. And knowing that I probably wouldn't see her again for another year, I realized that a lot of times I come back a year later to everywhere I go, and people said, I didn't practice at all. I don't even know if I remember how to do the roll. So I wanted to leave her with something to think about. And I said, Karen, in the U.S., the top people rolling, most of them are women. And there is nothing that would keep you from being as good as MASIK and Tobias and those guys, if you practiced, you have that potential. Absolutely. You can roll as well as they can. So later that summer, I got back to the U.S., and heading into the fall, after September, comes the Delmarva Paddlers Retreat, the premier Greenland-style paddling event in the U.S. That's the one that MASIK came to in 1998, and they often have Greenland guests coming there. And that year, they had arranged for, I think it was two guys, the president of QAJAQ, a guy named Niels Thomassen, and John Peterson, who had come before several times from Ilulissat. And those two, I think the QAJAQ, the Greenland Association, had decided to, at their expense, bring some other Greenlanders to come and see what was going on in the U.S. and maybe build some of their skills, as they realized that the guys like the Walden Ponscombe were such excellent rolling instructors. Maybe the Greenlanders could learn something from that. So that October, the first weekend of October, they brought a couple of adults, and there were 3 teenagers they brought along with them. And one of them was Karen Marie Jensen. And when I found out about that, I was very happy, because that means we would get to, me or whoever else, would get to work with her to roll some more, and she could reach that tremendous potential that she had to roll very well. The 2 other teenagers they brought with her, there was a guy named Thugeson, I think, from Ilulissat, and he was good at, I think he had a good forward stroke, but I think I haven't seen him since then. He has sort of moved out of kayaking. The other guy was named Jens Peter Jeremiassen, who at the time was, I guess, 19. And he stayed with kayaking. He had a long history in kayaking, and went on to, he won the Kayak title a couple times by now, I think, and he's still been quite involved. Well, the 3 of them had, I'm sure, a experience they will remember for the rest of their lives, coming to America for the first time. And we had instances such as we were driving in the car and came to a railroad crossing with the lights flashing for the train to come by. And they all wanted to get out because they were fascinated to actually see a real train. They hadn't seen one before up close. They said they don't have any trains in Greenland, so this was a bit of a curiosity. And the Delmarva organizers asked them if there was any particular thing they wanted to do in this country before they went home. And they said they wanted to go to the beach boardwalk and ride on the Ferris wheel. Well, we took them to the boardwalk, but this being early October, the Ferris wheel was not in operation. But the arcades were open, and all the beach T-shirt places and stuff like that. So we gave them some money and cut them loose. They had a good time. And when Karen Marie went back to Greenland, she had Norsok rolls, hand rolls, closed fist rolls. I don't know if she did an elbow roll or not, but she was... We didn't get to any forward ending rolls. It was just a layback rolls, but she was knocking them out left and right. I was anticipating that the next year at the competition, she would be in the running for a gold medal in rolling. And maybe that would inspire all the women in the 20 to 34-year-old age category and the other categories to step up their rolling game. And lest I forget, while she was at Delmarva, we had her demonstrate her ropes ability. And I think I set up a contest between Jens Peter Jeremiassen and Karen Marie. We had 2 ropes stations, and we had simultaneously them competing in low ropes. And I think we had 2 separate judging, so we get running score total. And if I recall correctly, Karen Marie beat Jens Peter. And the next year, 2010, the competition was held in Nuuk, and she did compete in the rolling event. And that story doesn't totally have a happy ending. It gets a little more complex, but I'll have to save that for another DUBCAST to give you all the details. Sometime around 2015 or so, I got access to all the records for the competition events going back to the beginning in 1987, which is why I can tell you, what she got this year, that year, who competed when, in what event. And so I took that data and started just tabulating it and, coming up. It's almost like baseball statistics, how many singles did this guy get against this pitcher in this ballpark, that kind of detail. Well, in the past, people usually kept track informally of the highest score in ropes and rolling. But in looking at all the data, I found there was other interesting pieces of statistics you can put together. I was able to calculate for each competitor in both rolling and ropes how many times they had actually competed in a given event, their highest score, their personal best, the number of gold medals that they had gotten, and the accumulated lifetime point total, adding up the number of points they had for every year. And just to add in one more, the per year average number of points. So their lifetime point total divided by the number of times they've competed in an event gives you their yearly average. So in compiling all that, I found that I think it was maybe MASIK had the highest accumulated point total, and he might have had the highest personal best, something like that. But the person, this including men or women, the person with the most ropes gold medals was Karen Marie Jensen. And I don't know if she had ever realized that before, but I was giving credit where credit was due. And in the following years, it was 2016 or 17, she did miss an event. Karen Marie's sister, Pia Jensen, also does ropes and is quite skilled at it, not quite as at Karen Marie's level. Well, I told you about Knud Jensen, their father. He was a great guy who'd come to, good competitor. Had that seal hunters thing going on. You wouldn't be boastful or ostentatious, just kind of mellow, quiet guy. Had some skills, but didn't make a big deal about them. Well, he very sadly, he passed away one of those years. And so it may have been close to the start of the competition, so Karen Marie did not attend that year. And we were all very sad to lose Knud Jensen, who'd become quite a fixture at the competition every year. I think it was the following year, Karen Marie missed the competition once again because she had gotten married and become a mom. But I was talking to John Peterson, who's very active in Kayak USA, that club, and John said to me that Karen had indicated that would be the last time she was going to miss a competition. She was very much wanting to stay involved and maintain her records, her top level of being the best woman at Ashlanaya Qatarnaq. And of course now she's in the 20 to 34-year-old age category, so she competes for the title. And I believe she has gotten third place, maybe second place in the past. Not the first place title yet, but she's in the running. So now you know Karen Marie Jensen from Ilulissat. Got a piece of music that goes back a ways in Greenland tradition. And this is called Lis Mari. It's a kind of a folk song. And you could think of it, well, let's see. You remember I said that the Kayak Song, any Greenland person interested in kayaking probably knows it, but not all Greenlanders would be familiar with the Kayak Song. But that song by Nina Silarsawak QAJAQ, I said that pretty much every Greenlander would be familiar with that song. So here's a song that I think it's safe to say every Greenlander would be familiar with. And you could think of it as maybe kind of a cross between, say, Oh Susanna by Stephen Foster and Country Roads by John Denver. It's something along those lines in terms of familiarity. And you remember quite some time ago on a DUBCAST, I did a song by the artist Juaaka. It was the one called Nuile Supkilap. Well, Juaaka has recorded a version of Lis Mari. In fact, in his early part of his career, this would have been, the 70s or the 80s, he did a version of Lis Mari, and then he did his more contemporary CD. He did a reworking of the song, and he also included the older version of it. So this is Lis Mari, as recorded by Juaaka, but a very popular folk song in Greenland.
Kisimi taragama Ekasa jigi sapara Asani nek sunana sok ilumut Paseru sura sapara Ishli napika kit Fasit ishdu apama Kongoyu taragama irumut Asani barungash dutit Na 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 Lis Mari sasara Puyana vepakit Kongoyu taragama ilumut Asani barungash dutit Lis Mari ilumut Pasit ishtu apama Umatin ilu asani nara Nasutut sekesepat Umatin ilu asani nara Nasutut
Now, after hearing DUBCAST number 4, if you happen to have gone out and bought the Juaaka CD, the one called Nasumik Payu that I described, you already have Juaaka's version of Lis Mari because it is on that very same CD. And if you do not have that CD by Juaaka, now would be a very good time to get it. And that can be done at atlanticmusic.gl. Juaaka is spelled Juaaka. So that's Juaaka, not Juaaka, which would be 2 Ks, but Juaaka. And there are a few other fine songs on that CD. Now, what did I say after 22? I promised, I said maybe Imaka. I would tell you about building a skin-on-frame kayak in 2 hours. Well, obviously, I didn't tell you that this time, but next time, episode 24, we'll get into that. So this is Dubside signing off. One more episode of the DUBCAST with Dubside. And don't forget that the water is your friend. And if you want the full quote, goes, "The water is your friend. If you love your friend, respect your friend, understand your friend, and protect your friend the water will never harm you."